Sean Brady calls out Colby Covington, calls him the easiest matchup at welterweight. I'll fight Colby Covington. Brady is calling his shots after picking up the biggest win of his career with a lopsided victory over Gilbert Burns in the UFC Vegas 97 main event Saturday night. With his only loss coming to welterweight champion Belal Muhammad back in 2022, the 17-1 Philadelphia native believes he's earned an even bigger fight after his latest performance. I think Colby is the easiest matchup in the division. I'll piece him up on the feet. I'll ragdoll him. I would like to fight Ian. He's an up-and-comer. I'm a little bit older than him, but I'm gonna be here for a long time. He's undefeated. He's got some hype. Before he said, I won't fight guys who are ranked behind me. I'm going to be ranked ahead of him on Tuesday with that number 6 spot. Maybe I'll let him fight me. We'll see how it works out though. Brady revealed he had actively pursued a fight with Ian Gary back in June, just as the 26-year-old Irishman was trying to bait Colby Covington into a UFC 303 clash. When Covington showed no interest, the UFC shifted gears and paired Gary with Michael Venom Page instead. Gary ultimately won a unanimous decision, but Brady wasn't the least bit impressed by his performance. International Fight Week, I knew Colby was not going to fight Ian Gary, Brady said during the post-fight show. Me and Ian, I said I would fight him International Fight Week. It didn't work out. We're on a collision course. He's undefeated. He's got a lot of hype. Nate Diaz recently grabbed headlines again after getting into a brawl at a nightclub. The UFC veteran, who retired after submitting Tony Ferguson at UFC 279, returned to the spotlight in July 2024 when he stepped into the boxing ring against his old rival, Jorge Masvidal. Known for his fiery temper and no-nonsense attitude, Diaz has been involved in numerous confrontations with both fighters and civilians throughout his career. While many fans revel in his Street Fighter persona, these incidents often provoke divided opinions within the MMA community. His latest clash, this time with a nightclub bouncer, is no different. Some fans celebrated Nate's boldness, but others, including Michael Bisping, were quick to condemn his actions. Bisping also pointed out that high-profile UFC fighters like Israel Adesanya and Nate Diaz have both been caught in confrontations recently, with footage of these incidents making rounds online. According to Bisping, this has become a growing trend where people intentionally provoke fighters, hoping to capture the conflict on camera and later pursue lawsuits for personal gain. Bisping called Nate and Izzy immature. Quote, that guy knew exactly who Israel Adesanya was. He was probably doing it to goad him on to maybe sue him down the line because that's just the state of the world we live in. Nate Diaz, he did the same thing a few days ago. Once again, that's getting into some kind of altercation out and about on a night out with a doorman. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna sit here and bash Nate Diaz because he's got legions of fans, but come on, what the hell? The man's almost 40 years old. Can't be going out there and getting into altercations like this every time. Every time, right? Listen, I wasn't innocent when I was a kid, but you gotta grow up and mature at some point. Nate Diaz is a very, very famous man, right? You gotta know that people, again, are going to be on their phones. Even with the UFC bantamweight title around his waist, Sean O'Malley feels like he's still fighting for respect from the MMA world. Critics continue to dismiss Suga as more of a flashy social media star than a dedicated athlete. Many fans believe his striking won't hold up once he faces a strong wrestler, and even his win over Aljamain Sterling for the belt hasn't silenced some of the doubters. Sterling himself recently took to Twitter, claiming O'Malley hasn't truly proven himself. It's no surprise that O'Malley is eager to shut everyone up when he takes on Aljo's teammate and top contender, Merab Dvalishvili, at Noche UFC on September 14th. The Machine is a wrestling force who dominated Henry Cejudo in his last bout, but O'Malley isn't impressed with what he's seen. He's ready to make a statement in this high-stakes showdown. This fight is not going to go the way he thinks it's going to go. O'Malley said in an interview with UFC.com, this fight is going to end brutal. The way he blitzes in, the ways he's sloppy. He is slow. It is not going to end well for him. I do not understand where the confidence comes from. I know he's beat a bunch of guys, but he's never fought anyone like me. I've heard so many people say he is the hardest fight in the division for me, and I disagree, O'Malley said. That'll be sweet to be able to go out there and put his lights out. That's a good feeling. People are going to be very, very surprised when I do it. Dana White reacts to Demetrious Johnson retiring from MMA. In the flyweight division of MMA, Demetrious Johnson is the only answer for the greatest of all time, and now that career is over. DJ defended the flyweight title 11 times, breaking Anderson Silva's UFC record for consecutive title defenses. Mighty Mouse dismantled opponent after opponent for 6 years, and it eventually took an Olympic champion in wrestling, Henry Cejudo, to knock him off his perch on his second try with a split decision. Demetrious Johnson is an icon in all of combat sports, widely regarded as one of the, if not the most skilled fighter to ever compete in any combat sports. Demetrious Johnson never failed to amaze the analysts and pundits with his impeccable completeness as a fighter. Mighty Mouse has no weaknesses when it comes to MMA. He is good literally everywhere. Legendary Mighty Mouse announced his retirement from fighting on Friday, setting the stage for not one, but 2 Hall of Fame inductions. Shortly after his decision, One Championship honored him as the inaugural member of their Hall of Fame. Meanwhile, UFC CEO Dana White confirmed that DJ will also be enshrined in the UFC Hall of Fame, cementing his legacy as one of the sport's all-time greats. Yeah, I didn't know that he retired, White said about Johnson when speaking to Grind City Media. Good for him. Incredible career he had. I never had a problem with Demetrious Johnson. Absolutely, he's a UFC Hall of Famer. Brandon Moreno talks on his return to fighting. Brandon had to step away from the fight game, but it wasn't due to injury or retirement. Despite being on a 2-fight skid, the former UFC flyweight champion, who is just 30 and still a major name in the division, announced earlier this year that he needed a break from MMA to recharge. His decision caught many by surprise, given his high ranking and the fact that he's still at the top of his game. In an interview with MMA Junkie, Moreno said, "At some point, the obligations, responsibilities, and all the stresses makes you not enjoy as much what you initially loved. I feel that way again, and that makes me very happy, because every time that I felt that way, I've always performed well." The Mexican fighter wasn't gone for long. He most recently fought in February. In fact, he's had bigger lulls in between fights before, yet the break was not so much the time, but about putting a pause on things. "Right now, I find myself in a really good moment," Moreno said. "The time I was away from MMA really helped me to clear my head and be with my family without thinking about fighting. Even though I was only doing 1 or 2 fights a year, I would fight, and immediately I would already be asked when my next fight would be, and against who. When you have an opponent and date set, you could still be 2-4 months away, but you have that fighting chip inside you and you're not 100% relaxed. I took this time to breathe and just spend time with my daughter and wife and just enjoy life." Moreno used the time to rehab some injuries and attend his body. Although he says the break was much needed, he can't lie and say he didn't miss fighting. As an athlete, you're also accustomed to train every day, the competition. So there is a point when you're like, man, I want to return, but you have to fight yourself so you can relax and wind down. Moreno said, "I feel very motivated to fight at this moment. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for daily MMA news."